Greetings and welcome to In-Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. The Caribbean Sociological Association and the St. Benedict's College, they recently paid tribute to former monk, sociologist, educator, scholar, sport administrator, and so much more, Professor Basil Matthews. Now, one of the organizers of that symposium, current president of CASA, and research fellow sociologist at the Sir Arthur Lewis Institute of Social and Economic Studies, Dr. Roy McCree. He joins us now to share some insight. Dr. McCree, how are you doing, sir?
I'm not too bad, Dickie. Thanks for having me and in having this discussion.
I'm definitely looking forward to it. And since I'm the son of educators, so very happy to have this discussion with you, an educator, about an educator. But let me start off asking the question though, what from your perspective is education? Give us a definition.
Well, education, traditional meaning is a process by which you go into a new state of being, a new state of knowledge, a new condition that's qualitatively different from the one that you're in at present. So education is about taking you somewhere that is better, whether in terms of knowledge, particularly in terms of knowledge, and also quality of life.
And with that in mind, thank you for that. How does Don Basil enter in within that rubric that you just gave me? What kind of impact does he have?
Professor Basil Matthews, was a multifaceted person, as your introduction indicated. A monk, scholar, educator, sport administrator, and one of his major visions and objectives was to provide educational opportunities for persons who otherwise would not have been able to access education. We're talking about the 1950s. We're talking about that period where you just had about 4 or 5 main schools in Trinidad and Tobago, particularly for boys. The St. Benedict's College was established in 1956 through his instrumentality, and it targeted particularly children, working class kids across all racial groups who would have been unable to get into Presentation College or Naparima College or St. Mary's or Queen's Royal College. So he was really about trying to give educational opportunities to all in the society so they can improve their own lot in life, so they can achieve occupational mobility, they can achieve social mobility, which was very limited, very restricted in that time period. We are talking about the 1950s, 1940s.
Now, you're giving that timestamp 1950s, 1940s, and if I'm correct, Professor Matthews would have gotten his PhD in 47, I believe. Now, many times you have people, okay, well, I finally get this piece of paper, so I'm now looking to be employed or within a sort of structure versus. Is it an act of ambition? Is it temerity that you have Professor Matthews saying, okay, well, I am actually going to create a structure to help fill this gap that I see? Talk to me a little bit about that. And I'm asking you, even like to put on the sociological hat with it, thanks.
Professor Matthews was a composite, multifaceted person. And you have to understand him in a holistic way, in a total way. So he became our first Black priest in 1935 at the age of 24, because he was born in 1911. And that religious grounding became his window onto the world and onto the reality. And you cannot divorce anything that he has done or attempted to do from that religious grounding. and his commitment to the poor, his commitment to the disadvantaged, his commitment to helping the downtrodden in the society. And that is where education, came in, and creating that opportunity for persons like himself who would have found it difficult then to access those opportunities. And also at the time of Professor Matthews, Dike, we have to understand the social structure that existed then. Sociologists have a particular interest in the social structure, how groups are ordered in the society, how relationships of power and resources are distributed. And in 1935, you can read the book of another sociologist, Professor Lloyd Braffett, the late principal of St. Augustine, where he looks at social stratification in Trinidad, published in 1953. And it was very simple, Dike. At the top, you had whites. Whites were not homogeneous. You had Irish, you had Scottish, you had English, you had the French, you even had the Spanish. But whites were at the top. In the middle, you had what they call brown folks, the product of white and the black miscegenation. And everybody after that, African, Asian, were down in the bottom. And social mobility, unless you had the right contact, unless you had the right color, unless you had the right class, it was almost impossible. Unless you married the right person, it was almost impossible to get that social and occupational mobility. And here it is, we have a man who is able to become a priest in 1935, then goes on to do a PhD, and really pursuing a dream, doing something that was almost unheard of then. Black folks, the underdogs, using education to improve their lot. And just a little context again, the Dom got his PhD in 1947 in sociology from Fordham University in New York. Before him, we had Oliver Cromwell Cox, another Trinidadian, who got his PhD in 1938 from the University of Chicago. But he spent his life in the States. The Dom came back home. The Dom came back home, consistent with his vows, consistent with his mission to improve the quality of life in the society in general, but particularly for the downtrodden and those who were unable to afford particularly access to education. So his religious training, his religious beliefs and commitment fed into his approach to education. And the education was also contained, religious elements, and what have you. It also fed into his approach to even to sport. He wanted to create opportunities. He was all about creating opportunities for the disadvantaged in the society, whatever race, okay, whatever ethnicity, whatever color. That to me defined him as an educator, defined him as a priest, defined him as what they call a humanist, somebody concerned about the human condition and trying to make things and life better for those who need it most.
That's interesting. You talk about that vision, that mission, and sometimes because you are so focused, you have this laser-like focus on what it is you're trying to do because you see the gaps. There's certain narratives that don't necessarily come into play. So like after the fact, so a person like yourself would be able to talk about sport or the sociology of sport, but he didn't necessarily have a name to put it like that, as opposed to say, okay, well, this is the work that needs to be done and I'm doing it. So we have about a minute on this side of the conversation, and I'll ask you to kind of make some of those distinctions, please, in terms of the sociology of sport, possibly the sociology of family. What gives it that nuance?
The good point. The theme of the symposium was tribute to a trailblazer. Okay, he was a trailblazer as the first Black priest in this country. He was a trailblazer in terms of being among the first to get a PhD, period, whether it's in sociology or not. He was among the first, unknowingly, Dike, to really pioneer the sociology of sport in this country and in the world. Okay, and he wrote the first history of football in this country as well. And sociology is about dealing with inequality, removing inequality so as to enhance people's lives and creating opportunities for people so that they can develop and grow. This is what the sociology of education is about, all right? So he was creating opportunities for young working class kids from the South, okay, to enhance their lives, to go forward. And one of his legacies include the several professionals from Benedict's College who were able to play soccer in the North American Soccer League. And up to this day, they cannot forget him. They cannot forget the impact he has had on their lives, how he has changed their lives forever in a good way, by using their talent, by using their ability to develop that sense of self, okay, and that confidence. And this is what he was about. And this is what his sociology and his religion taught him, and what he was about really. And in the sociology of sport, he was trying to use sport as an instrument of social and human development. Similarly, religion is trying to do the same. So sport and religion, there's something called muscular Christianity. And it involves using sport to inculcate virtues and values that religion tries to inculcate: obedience, discipline, respect for authority, respect for your own self, respect for others. So this is how his sporting interests, his religious interests, his educational interests all intertwined and became interconnected, since they had the same fundamental objective, which is to make us better persons, to develop the individual through their own talents and through their own abilities. So this is how his interest in sport related to his interest in education and his religious training.
And you say that, and I am immediately thinking of terms like the hidden curricula, because I might be teaching somebody how to kick a ball, pass it to somebody, but at the same time that those lessons of discipline, being there for your teammates, all those things come to the fore, and you may not overtly or consciously at the time be trying to get those messages across. But we take a short break, we return with more. We are speaking with the president of the Caribbean Sociological Association, Dr. Roy McCree. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are speaking with CASA President, Research Fellow and Sociologist, Dr. Roy McCree, and we are looking at the impact of Professor Basil Matthews, otherwise known as the Dom. But Dr. McCree, give me a little overview of the association itself, please, because and I want to do that to go forward in terms of how it is you all decided, okay, well, we need to do this, we need to honor the Dom in this sort of way.
Okay, CASA was established in 2020, just before the COVID-19 pandemic, started to emerge, and it brought together sociologists from the University of the West Indies, as well as the University of Guyana. And the main goal was to show how sociologists have contributed to the development of Caribbean society and civilization. Not how they can, but how they have. And that is our primary mission. And as part of that mission, we seek to honor and recognize those sociologists like the Dom who have blazed a trail in their own way in helping to make Caribbean society better. So we have had Lloyd Braffett, one of the early pioneers. We have had Orlando Patterson, Professor Orlando Patterson, still at Harvard, former advisor to Bill Clinton. We have another trailblazer in Stuart Hall, Jamaican Stuart Hall, who pioneered the development of cultural studies in Britain in the 60s and 70s. And we have the women. We have Erna Broadbear, a Jamaican writer and sociologist going back to the 60s, continue to write about uplifting, people in Jamaica. We have Professor Rhoda Reddock as well. We have Professor Pat Mohammed. And these women, Dike, have been at the forefront of really the feminist movement, stroke gender movement in the Caribbean, and trying to change thinking as it relates to, how women are seen, how women are constructed, as people in society. So they have been part of a movement to get governments to enact policies in education, in employment, to really create a new day for women so that they could achieve their potential. So CASA was about honoring these people. And Professor Reddock, she was a keynote speaker at our conference year before. We also had Professor from Guyana, his name slips me now, Percy Hinson from Guyana. He gave our guest keynote address last year. And this year we had Trini, Professor Anton Alaha from Diego Martin, attached to Western University in Canada. And they have been contributing to the development of knowledge about Caribbean society, and also helping to bring about changes in Caribbean society and how people see Caribbean society. So CASA was about trying to honor and respect, or do a different kind of R&R, recognize and respect those persons who through sociology have tried to develop more knowledge about us as Caribbean people, and have tried to improve our conditions of life, our conditions of existence. So that's the fundamental main objective of CASA. We also aim to mentor students at high school and university who are doing sociology, but it's a discipline you can't readily see where it would take you, okay, like law or medicine. So we have to mentor them, to direct them to opportunities and options in sociology. We have many sociologies, Dike: sociology of family, sociology of education, sociology of health, sociology of work. More recently, you have digital sociology, yes, sociology of the environment. I have a particular interest in the sociology of sport, which our dear Basil Matthews pioneered unknowingly. Because you rightly said there wasn't that name when he was writing about sport and the sociology of it. That name, sociology of sport, didn't really exist, but he was a pioneer all the same. So we want to mentor students really who are doing this discipline and give them some kind of guidance in terms of their career options, their career paths. And so this is what CASA is all about, trying to show how sociologists have contributed to the development of Caribbean society and knowledge about Caribbean society, and really to mentor those students in our high schools and our universities who are doing this discipline and not exactly clear where it could take them. But it's a gateway to all you can be. That's sociology, a gateway to all you can be. Okay?
Now, you saying that and you waxing philosophical on it, and my paws are raising, Dr. McCree. And you call some heavy hitters because you call in those names, and I'm thinking Children of Sisyphus by Orlando Patterson, thinking of the work that Una Broadbach has done at the fireside in Jamaica, looking at the fact that this, and even experiencing a bit feeling like that eternal other that Stuart Hall would allude to, but and looking and seeing, paying respect, as opposed to saying, okay, well, these are some of the possibilities. These things have already happened. These people are doing the work. But with that in mind, though, you also spoke about creation of knowledge. And I also want to ask about curation of knowledge, because sometimes it feels as though for us to latch on to something, we want to use it to help build policies, we need to get that knowledge from outside. So in terms of the way that we would take ritualized behavior, turn it into authoritative knowledge that can stand the rigor of academic scrutiny, or even validate itself within itself, so that I remember in the forward to, I think it was Cultural Action for Freedom by Paulo Freire. Person was saying that this voice is a dangerous voice because he's not talking to the people hoping to get validated. The voice is talking to itself. So how do we start to do that a little more? And using the methods, using the legacy of the DOM and people like that who have helped to pave that way. But sometimes it feels as though we want to create another wheel, as opposed to saying, okay, well, no, there's a methodology here. How do we latch on to that and help take it forward?
Yeah, big question, big comment. And, it's sad, but we have what I choose to call a kill culture in the society. Killing is not the physical one. It's not the materiality of the physical killing with dirt and ashes and box and flowers. It's that killing of our achievements, all right, that we forget about it. Killing of our ambition and the contributions that those who have gone before have made. Okay, that's a sad part of our society, because it doesn't only affect, or it has not only affected sociologists, but there are other areas of life in this country where people who have done well, who have contributed, make significant contribution, we don't hear about them anymore, And when you talk about creating knowledge that speaks to our realities, that is where the Professor Matthews again has to be located. Professor Matthews did his PhD on the family, the crisis in the family. And you would know, and others would know, we still have that crisis. And he was looking particularly at that time at the Black family. And he was doing this study at a time, he was pioneering studies on the family and the issues, the challenges the families face, and quote unquote family instability. So he looked particularly at the common law union, okay, which has been much maligned and criminalized, even the children in those relationships criminalized and denied opportunities, at one time. So he pioneered the study of the family before the Europeans had started doing research in that area. Okay, the M.G. Smiths, in particular, and also Hoskowitz, who did a study on Trinidad just before the DOM's PhD. But the point is, the DOM had pioneered the study of our family, and that PhD has since been lost to time, Dike. Okay? And the challenge we face is how we revisit his work to see what is relevant in there to take us forward or to deal with now. So we haven't been good at doing that. And part of the blame could be sociologists themselves, not using the work that has been done in the past to help us chart the way forward, all right? And this is why CASA becomes important, because we want to show what has been done and trying to see what is relevant in the DOM study of the family, what is relevant in the Orlando Patterson's study of slavery, what is relevant in their work that can help us see the light, okay, or see something positive in trying to transform, this society.
And the only thing that I think is positive about the fact that time is upon us is that hopefully we're able to beg the question like Oliver Twist, may we have some more and have more conversations with the membership of CASA. But we want to thank you so much, Mr. President, Dr. Roy McCree, Research Fellow, Sociologist to Arthur Lewis Institute of Social and Economic Studies, as well as the President of the Caribbean Sociological Association, looking at work, paying homage to the DOM, Professor Basil Matthews, and on behalf of the entire TTT News team, I'm Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining us.